Hello all. Well, what a week. What a week. Just 2 days ago we had a hurricane come through. That's what it looked like. They called it a vortex. But on the radar it looked just like a hurricane coming in with the circular bands of rain and wind. 900 trees were taken down in San Francisco. 2 people were killed and 4 injured. Los Angeles, south of here, had a tornado that ripped through an industrial park, tearing off roofs and flipping cars and turning over trucks. It was a category 1. It wasn't a big one, but for California, who hardly ever gets tornadoes, and when they do, they're just little down and up things or hardly anything. And they only come around about once every 5 or 6 years. So very unusual weather, lots of rain, especially this time of the year. Very, very unusual. But I guess we have to get used to weather whiplash all over the world as climate change takes hold. They say we're at 1.1 degrees above industrial levels with heating, global heat. So on this video, we're going to go look at some interesting specks. Let's go up here and do a video if there aren't any trees down along the way. Okay, first things first. Let's talk about what's happening in the Atlantic Ocean. Sargassum seaweed is stretched from one continent clear over to the Americas, and it's a huge mess in the Atlantic Ocean. This whole thing, the Sargassum seaweed spread, started in 2011 when scientists noticed that the Sargassum seaweed, which is a naturally occurring phenomenon that happens in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Sargassum Sea, which is in the Atlantic Ocean. And they noticed that it began to spread more and more and more. And they found out that it was spreading because of high nutrient count in the Atlantic Ocean from farmlands and from industry pouring garbage into the ocean. Also, they noticed that little particles of plastic seems to have something to do with it as well. This year they're seeing record amounts of it floating all over the ocean and coming into the east coast of Central, South, and North America, including Florida. These coastlines in the Caribbean are being sweltered and suffocated with all this Sargassum seaweed. They're also contributing it to the warming of the oceans. They're finding that the Atlantic is warming quite quickly, and with it the seaweed is spreading and growing. Now the problems with this is that a lot of people think, well, this is a good thing because it's absorbing all this carbon dioxide, but not really, because as soon as it dies and washes on shore and starts to decompose, it releases all that CO2 and also methane gas as well, which then in a few years turns into CO2. So you're in no better shape with or without it. Now, unfortunately, there's not much that humans can do about this. This will become a normal phenomenon every year. More and more of it will wash up on the ocean shores, and they're going to have to figure out a way to get rid of it before it washes up on the shore or when it's on the shoreline. It also blocks sunlight from reaching the coral reefs down below, and if it stays around long enough, it can kill off a lot of coral reefs. Now, it also has a positive effect because fish and other animals take advantage of the seaweed and live underneath it and in it. So it's one of those phenomena that will happen from here on out continuously because of endless human activity. With human activity comes something else. Let's look at a few statistics, shall we? Monthly CO2, February 2022 saw 419.28 parts per million. February 2023 saw 420.41 parts per million. Global methane, or CH4, November 2021 monthly average 1909.73 parts per billion. November 2022 1923.57 parts per billion. Monthly average of N2O, or nitrous oxide, saw November 2021 saw 334.87 parts per billion. November 2022 saw 336.9 0.16 parts per billion. That's the monthly averages. Global SF6's sulfur hydroxide November 2021 saw 10.79 parts per trillion. November 2022 saw 11.15 parts per trillion. That was the monthly average for last year and the year before. Now, another problem with human activity is a new report calls for water to be treated as global commodity goods as supply crisis looms. Water overuse of global water cycles has placed the world on a path to a potential 40% freshwater supply shortfall by the end of the decade. In just a few years, we'll be having severe water shortages, far worse than what we've already seen. The first UN conference on water warned the international community that the world is heading for massive collective failure. The policymakers are failing to ensure equal access to water. Wasting water on oil fracking is one of the worst criminal acts that humans are doing to the water, the fresh water supply around the world. We should not be wasting fresh water on fracking and oil exploration. But it doesn't look like that's going to slow down anytime soon, does it? All right, well, I guess that's it for this video. Well, we have one more big storm coming in about 4 days, so we'll see if that shows up. It's very, very late in the year for big storms here in California. They're usually long gone by now, and we're well off into spring and early summer. But this year, weather whiplash is really controlling things. We see record snowfall in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and one thing about all this rain and snow is that California is pretty much out of its drought condition, and a lot of the west coast of the United States is now out of drought condition in just 1 year. Pretty amazing. All right, with that, I appreciate all your ups, your new subscribers, and definitely your comments. And until next time.